What's up, guys? Yo, it's Fruit Punch Saber here, and I'm here with another interview on Granblue Fantasy Versus. Right? So this interview is from Anime News Network, as you see in that direction, right? And basically, I did read this before I started this. It talks about why they chose the 11 characters, why the game is quote unquote not too hard, and they talk about something else too, but we'll get to that later. So the article starts off with a summary, right? Arc system works, Granblue Fantasy, match made in heaven, right? And they just get into the background, arc system works, and Granblue Fantasy, all that stuff. So what we're going to be talking about is the interview of Yuito, Kimura, and Tetsuya Fukahara of Side Games. And there's one thing too, I don't know if it's related to this article or not, but something I found out, I think through Twitter or something, or Reddit, that if you want any changes on Granblue Fantasy Versus, you gotta talk to these two, right? The Side Games people, the directors of Granblue Fantasy in general, not really Arc System Works. And these guys are pulling the strings. They're really sick too. So, I guess similar to the other interview that we did earlier with Granblue_English, we're just going to read the article and then talk about it, right? So let's start with this. Thank you very much for inviting us to play Granblue Versus. I'd like you to tell us a bit more about the game setting. What does it take place in the Granblue storyline, and why all the crewmates fighting each other? Fukahara answered, it's after the fall of Earth State Empire and the end of main chapter 64. Also, the appearance of Belial and Chaos Bringer indicates when it happens in post. What makes the sky blue sky realm? That's the general timeline. But we should note that Versus is a parallel story. It doesn't really fit into a linear time frame, so use your imagination. As to why the crewmates are fighting, you'll have to play and see for yourself. Okay, so it's like the end of chapter 64 in the main story, and then what makes the sky blue sky realms, like, I guess you can call it an event. It's 2 events of it, and then they're making a part 3. I bet they're gonna release part 3 when Granblue Versus come out. That'd be cool. Right. So here's the question. Since you have such a big cast of characters, what factors do you consider in choosing who to include? Fukahara answered, we needed to narrow down Granblue cast a fair bit to fill the initial 11 character roster. There were 2 basic factors we considered in picking the cast. First, there's the character popularity, how many people would want them. Second consideration, well, there are certain archetypes of characters that appears in fighting games, like grapplers, speedy characters. We want a character that would slot nicely into those traditional fighting game archetype roles. There's a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but the vocal minority, I guess, would fit more, complaining that there's only 11 characters in Granblue Versus. Well, one, usually when a fighting game comes out, right, when it first comes out, it's usually a really small cast, right? Street Fighter V had a small cast. Tekken 7 Arcade, not the console release, had a small cast. Dragon Ball FighterZ is different because it's a teams game. You need 3 people, so that one was a little bit of a larger cast. And exclude from the team games, most single fighting games usually have a small cast, especially when it's very, like, completely brand new. Granblue, each character is new, so they had to build it from the ground up. They couldn't just use like past projects or anything like that to create the characters. So everything was built up from the ground up. So maybe a Granblue versus get a sequel. It's a huge maybe. Then it'll have a lot bigger cast than the initial roster. But for now, I think 11 is pretty good. Let's see. How does the process work between side games and Arc System Works to develop each of the characters as a fighting game character while keeping true to their style to the original RPG? Fukahara answered, it was a pretty smooth process. Honestly, we as side games devised the main concept for each character, giving specifics like we don't want this character to kick, only use weapon. Arc System Works had their own concept for each character, so we went back and forth a lot. Let me try to break that down. You don't want this character to kick, only use weapon. I wonder, did Arc System Work trying to make it like Guilty Gear? You know, like punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, dust. Or maybe they're talking like a specific character, right? I wonder if they were debating we should use Guilty Gear controls or BlazBlue controls, right? BlazBlue is like ABCS. That's more like BlazBlue, but then they added block button. Or maybe, I think there's probably just talking about a specific character, so I don't want to get too deep into that. Kimura answered, it should be noted that there were plenty of Granblue fans at Arc System Work, so they had a good understanding of what we wanted out of each other. Their ideas are always great, so they connected quickly because Arc System's fan of Granblue fantasy. Match made in heaven. How do key elements of Granblue fantasy like primal beasts and varied weapon factor into competitive gameplay? Fukahara answered, most of these elements only really affect the single player RPG mode. Dang. Gotta equip water weapon against freaking, I don't know, Yggdrasil. Nah, I'm fucking tripping. I meant Colossal Fire. So elements do come into a factor, but only in RPG mode. Okay, Kimura added, well, one thing we should note is that gathering weapon does have an effect on competitive side, because you can use the weapon skins to change character appearance, fashions, alright. You can use them in versus play. Dang, I gotta grind RPG mode then to get them weapons. Alright, the interviewer asked, but they won't affect things like damage and hitboxes. Kimura added, no, they won't. Let's see about that. Well, I think from what we saw, most of the weapons are pretty, they're like the same, just different color. I don't think they're like a huge difference, like fucking short sword into a goddamn buster sword, right? I don't think it's a huge change like that. I think it's just different colors with a little bit of design, different design. Well, we'll see if it affects damages to hitbox when the game comes out. The interviewer asked, what sort of things do you take in consideration when making an RPG like Granblue Fantasy into a fighting game? I imagine a lot of Granblue fan base doesn't play fighting games regularly. Fukahara added, we felt like having a highly technical, very combo orientated fighting game would be unfriendly to fighting games first timers, so we wanted to keep the character commands very simple. However, we need to make sure that there's enough depth for genre fans to enjoy. While it's simple to move the character around, in order to win consistently, you'll need the right tactics. If you're new to fighting games, we think you should give the RPG story mode a try. It should help ease you into fighting games and get you used to things like character movement. While you're grinding away, you'll pick up a lot of the gameplay basics. Fundamentals. That's genius. I love this. This is a great answer. So, the question the interviewer asked, I'm gonna recap it, right? is, do they take consideration to people that never played fighting game before, basically, right? And Fukahara said, yeah, we did. And that's why Granblue Versus had like that 10 hit combo limit, which is kind of whack. But, you know, they don't want to scare off the new fighting game players, especially the Granblue Fantasy fanboys. Well, a lot of the Granblue Fantasy fanboys do play fighting games, especially anime fighters like BlazBlue. So yeah. So let me break this down. We felt the highly technical, very combo oriented fighting game would be unfriendly. So that's the 10 hit combos limit. Some characters differs, right? I think Vasaraga had like 8 or something, I don't know. But every character have a combo limit, and it's different. It's a different number of hits. It's to prevent like infinites and broken ass 1 kill combos or 2 touch of death maybe. So they want to keep the character commands very simple. They don't want to scare the new people, so they put a limit, right? So it's not about the combos. Hopefully it's about neutral anime fighting games though. However, we need to make sure that there's enough depth for the genre fans to enjoy. So the game is simple, but there's still mechanics, like I guess mind games, galaxy brains, plays, I should say. So there's enough depth. We'll find out more when the game release, obviously. Probably like Lorraine, right? Mix up heavy character, and Charlotte a bitch ass jumping A. I guess that's some depth. Probably others too, like Fairy Set Play, and who else? Probably Material looks pretty interesting, right? She looks complicated, kinda. So there's probably that depth, right, for characters to explore, because every character is like see, that's the thing about the small cast. Even though there's 11 characters, it's 11 very different characters except for Catalina and Gran. I think Catalina and Gran is pretty similar, in my opinion, right? Just footsies and fireballs. Except for Gran's like fucking, I think he's more of a gorilla. Alright. I heard no, let's not get off topic. While it's simple to move the character around in order to win consistently, you need the right tactics. Mind games. If you're new, this is the key. If you're new to fighting games, we think you should give RPG story mode a try. It should help ease you into fighting games to get used to things like character movement. While you're grinding away, you pick up a lot of the fundamentals. That, I think, is genius. Tekken try adding like frame data and punishment mode. I think that's cool and all, but I don't know from a new fighting game person perspective that they'll ever buy Tekken just to buy frame data and punishment mode. I don't think they found that very appealing. But I think RPG story mode would be very appealing, because you get Granblue Fantasy Story. That's for the Granblue Fantasy fanboys or girls that don't play fighting game. They want to try out the story, of course, and they'll get used to the movement, right? There's no air dash, but they'll get used to movement, and then they'll pick up fundamentals, right? So RPG mode might get like a little bit more harder, and then they'll pick up, oh, I should block that. Oh, that's minus, I should punish it. Oh, this button has great range, I should use it more, I should abuse it. Oh, this special move is godlike, I should use it. Oh, this has invincibility, let me just wake up DP all day, every day. Fundamentals. I think this is great. This is probably the best answer in this entire interview. And in the previous interview that I did on my previous video, I asked, not me, but I questioned myself, hey, they talk about story mode and they're going to add DLC to expand that story mode. Is it like a visual novel? or is it like they're gonna have like fight, like RPG mode, and then visual novel, and then fight, visual novel? It seems this answered my question. It's going to be fight, visual novel, fight, visual novel, and they're planning to add DLC to expand the main story, which is fantastic. And the whole point of the main story is to help new fighting game players learn fundamentals and movement. So this is fucking genius. I love it. I love everything about this answer. That's why I'm buying the game twice, because I don't know when's the NA release date, and I'm definitely not gonna wait when I buy the Japanese. Alright, the interviewer asks, both side games and Arc System Works sponsor a lot of big fighting game events. Daigo, side games beast, and Evo. Will there be a big competitive push for Granblue versus them? I wonder if Daigo, who else is in Team Daigo? Daigo, Fudo, Infectious, and PR Barog, and GamerB. You know GamerB is gonna play Granblue versus GamerB. I seen on his Twitch channel, he played Granblue Fantasy already. He's been playing it for like a year. And he's gonna play. I don't know about Daigo. Fudo plays everything though. I saw him play Gun Stratos. That shit was sick. I don't know about Infectious and PL Barrog. PL Barrog might try Granblue versus. He tried Eunice, I remember that. He picked fuck, what's that dude name? I forgot. It started with G, the Sight, man. I forgot his name. Kimura answered, we do have a lot of plans on the esports fronts. We'll have Granblue Fantasy Versus as a game in the major Japanese esports event Rage. I looked that up. So Rage is a Japanese tournament, but only for Shadowverse, as far as I saw. And then I tried looking it up again to see if they got Granblue Fantasy. I don't think they updated their page yet, but it's supposed to be in March. That's pretty close. I think it's supposed to be in March. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know definitely Rage is a Shadowverse tournament. So it's a side games tournament. And after that, the game will be part of Arc Revel World Tour, which still hasn't been announced, but that's okay. We also want to support small scale community events, so stay tuned for future plans. Now, alright, the interviewer asks, now I'm curious, if you've seen Granblue Fantasy tournaments that have happened at events like Evo and CEO Otaku. Kimura asks, I was there, I saw them. I saw a lot of you folks enjoying it. Laugh. And then this, to wrap up the interview, he asked, can I make a personal request? Please consider making Macho Vern a playable character. God. Fukahara said, I feel like we have to very, very carefully think about the game power balance if we want to add a character that threatening. And that's the end of the interview. So the interview didn't talk about too much about gameplay or DLC. It talked about why they pick. No. It talked about the story, where it takes place in Granblue Fantasy, right? Why they pick the 11 characters because of popularity and archetype. Like Soares, they picked him in I talked about in a previous interview video that they picked Soares because he's an old man, he uses fists, and he's big body, right? Character archetypes and popularity. And then process, they talk about how complicated or simple it was to work with Arc System Works in creating a JRPG game. I guess you can call it a JRPG game, right? Into a fighting game. And they say it was pretty easy because, you know, Arc System Works are Granblue Fantasy fanboys, so they accept a lot of things, right? Of course, they had a back and forth, but that's like every project you're gonna have to face. and the key elements. To talk about elements and weapon factors. Elements and weapon factors are not going to affect gameplay. In versus mode, only RPG mode, and in versus mode it's just fashion. And he proclaimed, right, the directors and producers proclaim of Granblue Fantasy Versus proclaims that it won't affect damage or hitbox, but we'll see about that. We'll see about it when it comes out. And then they take in consideration of people that never played fighting games before, but they're Granblue fans and they want to buy the game for the story. Not for the story. They want to buy the game, and then I think this is the best response from the interview. I think this is the best thing ever said in this interview. So they took in consideration of newly fighting games players, right? Fresh meat. I don't know what they call them, right? People that never played fighting games. They added story RPG mode, and they want them to get the feel of the characters, learn a little bit of fundamentals. I feel like they might have to bump up the difficult level in RPG mode. So they gotta abuse, the new players gotta figure out what button to abuse, what button's invincible, because I imagine there's gonna be chip damage in there too, and spacing, all that shit. Fundamentals. I love saying that word. And they talk about the competitive scene of Granblue Versus and how much they're gonna try to push it. Kimura said they're gonna try. They're gonna try to push it. And that's it. That wraps up the interview. I think this is a really good interview overall. And I keep repeating this because I think this is a fantastic answer. This, I can't stress this enough. This because there's one thing that a lot of fighting games always struggle, and there's a lot of people that talk about, not just netcode, rollback netcode, GGPO, not just that. How to get new people into fighting games, right? How? They're like, do we add frame data? Do we upgrade the training mode? Guilty Gear, Rev, they released like fucking this godlike tutorial, but a lot of people still got into it. They're like, how do we get these new players start playing fighting games? And Granblue Versus like, look, let's just do story mode, boss battle, because RPG story mode is basically going to be boss battles. Story mode, boss battle. They're going to learn fundamentals. They're going to learn character movement, and they're going to enjoy this fantastic story mode. So I think this is great. I wonder how big the story mode. I hope it's very big. I think it is going to be very big, because I said it earlier too in my previous interview video. Not my interview. Discussion. I should call it discussion. My previous discussion. Right? Fukahara already discussed that he's going to release and expand the RPG mode of the game. And they're going to expand the main story too. With every DLC characters comes with a story. So that's going to be super sick. Alright, I appreciate you guys watching my video. Thanks for stopping by. And go ahead and I'm going to put the interview in the link below. Please click it too to support the Anime News Network. Thank you guys for releasing this article. This article, I think, was very lovely. I enjoy reading it. And hope you guys have a wonderful day. Later. Bye.